I am so beyond excited about this video. It is my top 15 Christmas DIYs using wood. So with that being said, my name's Misty. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Gleespen Designs. Let's get crafting. For this project, I'm going to be using a Dollar Tree plus $3 wood round. It does have these claw tooth hangers on the back. I suggest removing them and keeping them. They come so in handy. You guys, I can't tell you how many times I've reused these. So definitely just stick them in a little jar, put them somewhere. You just want to keep those because I promise you will find a need for them. Now with the wood round, I removed those and I take my white chalk paint and completely cover it. Then I'm going to take one of these bead garland rings from Dollar Tree, and I do go ahead and paint those with white chalk paint as well. Once the top of the wood round was completely dried, I flip it over and I want to add some little feet to this just to rise it up a little bit. And these little wood Dollar Tree snowmen are absolutely perfect for little feet, for boxes, or whatever you would like to use them for. All you have to do is use them upside down and they turn out so pretty, and nobody would ever know that they are originally wood snowmen. I decided to use 6 of these, and just like I do with a lot of things, I place it down where I want them to be, and then I go back through and attach everything down with some glue or hot glue. Once I had all the snowmen glued on, I go back in and paint the bottom and the snowmen white as well. Next, I grabbed a few of these Dollar Tree Christmas Village houses. They have these in quite a few different styles, so you could just go in and choose the ones that you like. Dollar Tree has put out these houses for so many years, and they do it every single year around Christmas time. However, over the last few years, these now have a battery operated tea light inside, so these little houses do now light up. All I did was paint all of these with white chalk paint. You can use spray paint. I suggest using spray paint because it will save you a lot of time. I actually ran out of time and could not paint the back of the houses, so I will be going back in there and doing that. But once all the houses were dry, I placed them onto that white tray that I just made, and I'm going to take some of these Dollar Tree trees. I think they're so pretty with the faux snow, and I'm going to place them onto the wood round where I would like them to be. Once I had the houses and the trees where I wanted them, I moved that to the side, and then I'm going to take one of these plastic Dollar Tree bell cloches. You guys, this sticker gave me such a hard time. It was a pain in the butt, let me tell you. But I was able to get most of it off with some Dawn dish soap, and if I would have had Goo Gone, which they do sell at Dollar Tree, it would have been so much easier. So I am going to get some Goo Gone and remove the little bit of residue that's left. But as you can see, it is going to fit over the houses and the trees so easily. These cloches have a air venting system up at the top, and all you have to do is just pull those two pieces right apart, and now that is completely gone and you have this really cute cloche top. You can leave it just like this. It does have these holes for ventilation and so that you can grab it. I decided to take this little trinket jar top. I painted it white. The trinket jar I did also get from Dollar Tree, and I grabbed this Fix-All adhesive. I could not get the lid off because it was glued on, so I had to cut a hole in the bottom, and then I just add some glue to the bottom of that glass piece and place it right on top and allow that to dry. Okay, how absolutely gorgeous is this Christmas decor piece off of Etsy? I had to recreate it and I knew exactly how. So I'm going to start with some Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks, and I use the super glue, wood glue, as well as some hot glue, and I glue two of those tower blocks together end to end, and I do that one more time with two more pieces. Then you're going to take the two sets of tumbling tower blocks and you're going to glue them in a T shape. Now to make it from a T into a cross, you're going to take one more tumbling tower block and place it in the center up top of the T. Now I want my cross to be thicker, so in order to do that, I take some more tumbling tower blocks and I just start gluing them over top of the original cross, basically making two crosses and gluing them together, and that makes it as thick as we will need it. Now I have a nice thick wood cross that is also going to be the T in my word Christmas. For the other letter blocks, Dollar Tree carries these thicker pieces of wood, and I place it right underneath where the T is, and I mark it so that I can cut two of those because those are the S and the M in our word Christmas, and you need those to be the biggest. And to make those cuts, I use my little mini table saw. Again, it will always be linked down below whenever I use it in a video. I make the S and the M cut, and then I take a few more pieces of those wood pieces from Dollar Tree, and I make the other letters just by making them in different size variations smaller than the first two, which are the S and the M. Okay, that sounded a little bit confusing. Basically, you're making the S and the M cut, which are the biggest letter blocks, and then all of the other letter blocks you can make smaller than that and in different sizes. You can see down at the bottom of the screen what I mean. I just have a bunch of different size blocks, and the S and the M are the biggest. So now I'm taking my faux stain that I like to use, which is the Apple Barrel Burnt Umber, with a little bit of black chalk paint mixed in with some water just to make the stain a little bit darker. And I go ahead and I start staining all of those wood pieces as well as the cross. Once everything was stained and the stain was dry, I used my Cricut machine to cut out the word Christmas except for the T, and I start placing each one of the letters in the center of each one of the blocks. And as you can see, while I was in Cricut Design Space, I did kind of make each one of the letters shorter or taller depending on how big their block was. So basically, depending on how big the wood piece was, that was how big I made the letters. And since they are all different sizes, I also made the letters different sizes as well, because that's exactly how it was in the picture. Once I had all the letters stuck onto the pieces of wood, I take my white chalk paint and I do just kind of do a heavy dry brushing across the entire wood piece. I left the top blank because once you remove the sticker letters or the vinyl letters, you can see that really pretty wood color showing through, and the top makes that pop, I think, a little bit more. But unfortunately, I do kind of mess up and get some on the top of one, so I just kind of figured I would go ahead and start painting the tops and have it all that white distressed look. But what I do is I paint over the sticker letters, and again, that will make it so that once you reveal the sticker letter and pull it off, that wood will show through. I like to take my Cricut tool or even a pair of tweezers and grab the sticker letter or vinyl letter and peel it off before the paint dries. Now, because I use that bare chalk paint and it's really not the best, at least in my opinion, I do go over it really quickly each block before I peel the letter off with one quick coat of that white chalk paint, just so that it is a little bit, I guess, more covered than it originally was. And seriously, look how gorgeous that looks with that wood color peeking through the letter. Repeat those steps with the rest of the letter blocks, then you're going to spell out the word Christmas, putting the letters in the position that they go, and this DIY is done. For this DIY, I found this wood piece in the trash. Yes, you guys, I know it was sitting on the side of the road. And listen, after seeing some of the beautiful things that Sammy from Unicorn Dust Designs has done with things that she's grabbed out of the trash or off the side of the road, I had to grab it because once I seen it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. One, the pieces were already starting to fall apart, so I didn't have to feel bad about ripping that gorgeous piece apart. But they also have the peaks, which are perfect for the project because you will need those peaks. So if you have any extra picket fence pieces, or you could also look on Facebook Marketplace, they have tons of free wood just like this, and you can do this exact same project. I used my zip sander to sand all three of these pieces down so that you would not get any splinters, and you do want to have the rough, rustic, natural look to them, but you don't want to obviously get hurt. So I just sanded them down, and then you're going to take two of those picket fence pieces, place them together, and then you're going to take your third one and place it on top. Then move it up a few inches. You can make it taller or shorter if you would like. Then I just use my yardstick and trace down where I would like to cut down those two pieces that are on the bottom to get our church shape. To cut these wood pieces down, I'm going to bring out Susie the table saw, and this little thing is just so cute, and it really is pretty dang powerful, and I love how quick and easy it is to work with. And again, hello, it is just so tiny and cute. I got it off of Amazon, and I will definitely have the link down in the description box if you guys would like to check it out. Once I had those pieces cut down, I was going to leave this red piece here this color because it's kind of Christmassy already, but I did have a vision in mind, so I had to get there, and I used the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I just did a heavy dry brushing on all three of these wood pieces so that they all looked the same. To start assembling the church, I flip the smaller pieces over to the back. Then I'm going to take a piece of wood from Dollar Tree, and I just marked it where I wanted to cut it, and it was pretty much just in half. Then I use a lot of super glue, wood glue, which I did not mean to use that much, and I'm going to glue those two pieces, one at the bottom and then one closer to the top, just to keep those two church pieces nice and secure. Then I take the longer piece and I add some more super glue, wood glue, as well as some hot glue, and you're going to glue that right in the center in between those two first wood pieces, creating the church. On the peaks of my church, I want to create a roof, so I'm using these jumbo craft sticks from Walmart. You can also use the Dollar Tree ones as well, and I'm going to do a faux stain, which is just water and paint, and I mix those up until I like the color, and then I just start painting it on just like you would any other stain. And I do the front and back of these two craft sticks. Once the craft sticks were dry, I used my scissors just to cut off the rounded edge. You can keep that rounded edge if you would like. I wanted a straight edge, and then I just hold it up here at the peak so that I can kind of see how much I wanted it to hang off on the side of the roof. And then all I do is cut down 4 of those pieces so that they will fit on all 4 of the peaks, these 2 up here, as well as the 2 down on the bottom part of the church. Then all I do is use my hot glue gun, and I just hot glue all of those roof pieces onto the peaks of our church. Once the roof of your church is on, it will look like this, and next I'm going to be using this amazing wood rub-on transfer from Dollar Tree, this gorgeous brown wood. It looks so real. They also have like a white shiplap look as well, and also a darker, almost like a black wood. And I've used these rub-on transfers in this fall project here, and these wood rub-on transfers are amazing. As you can see, I left the backing on the transfer, then I'm going to place it facing down on my church, and I use my yardstick and pen to draw and trace out a really tall, pretty grand door. I wanted it to have a curved top, so I used my paint to kind of give it a curved top to it. I did go in and curve it just a little bit more, and I also did make it a little bit more narrow and not so wide, as you can see here in just a moment. But once I have the door traced out, I do go ahead and cut it out with my scissors. Again, still having that wood rub-on transfer still on its backing. Then once you have your door completely cut out, you can take it and make sure that that is the length and size you would like your door to be. Now, this wood does have a lot of nicks and dings and things like that because it is just nice and weathered. So I take some Mod Podge and I place it right where the door is going to be. Then once it is completely dry, again, let the Mod Podge completely dry. You're not gluing the transfer on to your church. You're going to let the Mod Podge dry so that the surface is nice and smooth, and then you are going to place down your rub-on transfer, and you can use a squeegee or credit card, whatever you have on hand, to just start rubbing that transfer down. And when you're rubbing these transfers down, that makes it transfer onto your project. And I like to rub it down really nice, making sure that I get it all on there. And then as I'm peeling it off, I peel the backing off and I still kind of continue to rub the transfer on so that I don't accidentally pull anything up. But really, these transfers work so great, and you guys, oh my goodness, look at that. For the wreath on the top of the church, I'm using these greenery ties from Dollar Tree. I did have one from last year that I had already sprayed the faux snow that Dollar Tree carries on it, and I really liked that look. However, it is too bushy, so I'm going to take my scissors and just cut down those bristles so that it is a little bit thinner and not so crazy. We want it to look as realistic as we can make it. Now I just take it and form a circle with that greenery piece, and I just twisted the ends together. You can hot glue it if you would like, but this creates the perfect little wreath form. I want to add some little red berries to this wreath, and Dollar Tree carries these pipberry garlands, and you can pull the berries right off. They are usually on a string attached to one another, and all I did was pull a few of them off, and then I'm just going to cut off the string that is holding two of them together, add some hot glue onto the wreath, and then I glue those little berries onto our little wreath, and I place them in like little clusters or pairs, I guess you could say, and I do a few pairs going around the wreath form. Once I had my berries glued on, I pulled this bow off of another Dollar Tree ornament, and I did cut down the tails to the bow to make it a little bit shorter, and I glued it right onto our wreath. Adding the wreath onto the church is super simple. Find out where you would like to place it, add some hot glue onto the back of the wreath, and glue it right down in place. Oh my goodness, how adorable is that? You can definitely leave it just the wreath, but I also pulled another greenery piece with a pine cone and some berries off of another Dollar Tree ornament, and I glued it up at the top of the door, kind of like an over-the-door swag. Once I had all of the greenery in place, I wanted to create a cross at the top, and I ran out of these bamboo sticks a couple days ago, but I found a spare one that I had spilled coffee on, and I knew I'd be able to use it eventually, and it definitely came in handy today. You could also use a craft stick or even a popsicle stick to create the cross as well. So all I did was cut that bamboo stick down into two pieces, and I glued the two pieces together, creating that cross shape. And then I used the same faux stain that we used on the roof, which again is just the paint and water mixture, and I stain the cross the same wood color. Now all you have to do is glue the cross up here at the top of your church. Okay, so last minute, I decided I wanted to add a drape, more, I guess, for looks than anything, but it does have meaning to it. So I'm going to take some Dollar Tree white fabric. This is a Crafter Square product, and I just cut a piece. It's probably about 1/4 of an inch wide, and I would say maybe 3 or 4 inches long. And for the drape, I wanted to have these dovetailed ends on either end, so I just fold the fabric in half and then I cut at an inward diagonal angle, and it will give you these really nice dovetailed ends. Then you are going to take your drape and you are going to add it to the cross, placing either end of the fabric back behind the cross, hot gluing it down, making sure that the loop is in front of the cross so that when you fold it over, it will look correct. Then add some hot glue and fold your drape down, and look how amazing that turned out. On the Etsy website, I found these gorgeous stick trees with this gold glitter on them, and I knew I had to make some, so I grabbed some Dollar Tree poster board. It does not matter what color you are using. You can use any color. I folded mine in half, and then I'm going to start cutting it down that center because I do want to make 2 different size trees. And I'm going to start placing this poster board into a cone, and I just start wrapping it up at one corner and forming that cone shape. If you have not made the cones before, they are fairly easy, and if you do not get it the first time, just unravel the poster board and try again. Once you have the cone shape that you like, just hot glue it into place and cut off the excess. Now these cones are going to stand up super funky, and to fix that problem, you want to smush it down, flatten it completely flat, and cut straight across. And then you want to turn it 180 degrees and cut again straight across after you flatten it out. And to get it back into that circle shape, I just start folding it and making a crease between each one of those creases that I made from flattening it down. You can also just keep cutting it until you have the cone completely straight at the bottom and will stand up. I made 2 of those cones, as you could see, and then I just went out to my yard and grabbed a whole bunch of sticks. Then using my miter shears, I start cutting a bunch of the sticks down into little size pieces, around 1 inch to 2 inches, some even a 1/2 inch. You will need to cut quite a few pieces of those sticks, but once you have a bunch cut down, you want to start taking them and hot gluing them together, going around the cone. You are not gluing the sticks to the cone itself. You are just gluing the sticks to one another, going around the cone shape. I start with forming a circle down at the bottom of the cone, then I need to start working my way up, so I need to start getting some height. So I just take 2 pieces of stick and try and kind of form a triangle with it, but without a bottom, and I glue it to that circle on the sticks that is on the bottom of the cone. And I do a few of those going around, and you can kind of work with adding sticks leaning up against those, and then, you know, taking a stick and placing it to where it connects one stick to another. You're just going to keep placing them, going around, kind of filling in gaps and connecting all the sticks together as much as you can. Honestly, it's probably easier to just watch than actually have someone explain, because it really is just super easy. All you're doing is covering the cone with sticks, but not gluing the sticks to the cone. You're gluing the sticks to each other and working your way up as you go. Now, the original trees on Etsy did have this gold glitter on them, and as I was making these trees, I really fell in love with the natural rustic look of these trees and just the natural wood. So I kept going until I reached the top, and then once you have all of your sticks placed on, you can just reach up underneath the bottom and kind of pull your cone right out. Here's a quick little tip. A DIY like this will probably have a lot of hot glue strands. If you take a heat gun or even a hair blow dryer, it will make those glue strands disappear right before your eyes. I also made a larger one and put some fairy lights up inside of them, and these turned out so gorgeous. Now, I know these are not wood and they're actually MDF board, but you can use Dollar Tree wood planks like I do later on in the video, but I wanted to show you this option as well. So Dollar Tree comes out with these long MDF like shelf sitters. They're pretty thick and they have them pretty much for every season. Well, I grabbed 3 of them around Valentine's Day. I do have other seasons as well, but these are just the ones that I grabbed. And I'm going to be making a Christmas tree out of these. I know it kind of sounds crazy, but you'll see exactly what I mean. So the easiest way that I can explain this is you're going to want to take this and mark off a 12-inch piece, a 10-inch piece, an 8-inch piece, 6-inch, 4-inch, and then finally a 2-inch piece. Once you have those all marked off, also keep in mind when I marked off the 12-inch piece, that left me with 6 inches on the other side because this piece is actually 18 inches long. Okay, so I wanted to remove the paper on these. So I have watched Kathy Jo from Kathy Jo DIYs as well as Brenda from Rustic and Lace. They remove the paper from the Dollar Tree signs or anything like this here by adding some water, spraying it down with some water. I did peel off that like plastic coating. These signs do have a little plastic coating. And then once you get to the actual sticker part of the paper, spritz it with some water, allow it to sit for a second. That first one I did not allow it to sit long enough. But if you allow it to sit for 2-3 minutes max, it's going to really loosen up that paper, and all you have to do is just take a little squeegee thingy and just scrape it right off. Next, I just used my jigsaw I got off of Amazon, linked down below, just to cut these down to size. And now I'm just going to take a paint stir stick. This is one of the larger ones, and I'm using a little bit of burnt umber. This is the project that I had mentioned earlier that I needed to save my burnt umber for because I only had a tiny bit left, and it was already watered down at that. So I used the burnt umber for a stain, and I'm just going to stain this paint stir stick. This piece here is actually going to be my trunk for my tree. If you would like to use actual stain for this, you definitely can do that. I just like to use the paint in the water because it's a lot less chemicals, and I do have little ones, so I just use the faux stain technique. Once I have my paint stir stick stained, I'm going to be using this Christmas paper pack, again, from Amazon. It's from the Paper Studio, and this is my favorite Christmas paper pack. The other one is my favorite, like, rustic farmhouse favorite paper pack, but this one is by far my favorite Christmas one. So, of course, I got you guys, and I will have it linked down below in the description box. Like, seriously, did you guys see that deer? Pop that into a frame, and that is an art piece all on its own. Another one that I'm trying to figure out a project to use is this little, it has like this one right here. It reminds me of like little antique or vintage Santas. I think it is just so cute, and I want to make a cute little DIY for it. Those numbers are 1 through 25, and they are perfect for a Christmas advent calendar. I made this one here years ago using these numbers, and it is so adorable, and it blew up on TikTok. So I decided I was also going to start using this green. It was a paper that already had fallen out of the paper pack that I just showed you. Since it fell out, I figured that's just going to be the first one that I use. I also loved the green color, and I also really loved that wood look to it. So what I'm going to do is just place my MDF piece on there, trace it out, and then I'm going to cut it out as well. And I'm not going to glue it down just yet. You guys know I can't commit. It's a thing that I have apparently an issue with, but I'm just going to cut it. And I did realize that, wait a minute, I love the fact that there is the red on this outside, but on the edge that I cut, it's not red. So I decided to just take some red paint in the color, I believe, Flag Red, the same one that I've been using, a little bit of black paint. Again, you guys, a little bit. Like, seriously, it's wild the amount of black paint that will deepen your paint way too dark. So I did have to add, again, a little bit more red, and I just painted that side where I cut so that it matched. And just because it was a little slightly different, I did kind of go over the other pieces or the other sides that were red as well. Two of these tree pieces are going to have that red because the MDF piece was originally red on the outside edges, and the other 4 pieces are going to have white. And I actually just left them like that because it goes 1 red, then 2 white, 1 red, then 2 white once I start putting the tree together, and it just worked, and there was no reason to change it. If you would like to change it, you absolutely can do that, but I felt the red and the white already went with the colors that I was using. I was using kind of a green, white, and red, or like green cream, or at least an off-white color, and then a red color. You'll see it here in a second. So I did the first one, the 12-inch piece, with that green paper. Now the 10-inch piece, I'm going to go with a lighter color. So I chose this paper here that had all these cute little Christmas sayings, and I made sure to cut it out where you could actually see some of the words. And then see, now the next one here, I decided to go with a red paper, and I loved this one with the little snowflakes. This one here was the 8-inch. Now we're going with the 6-inch piece, and for the 6-inch, I used this beautiful mistletoe paper, and I thought it was just really, really pretty. Now to move on a little bit quicker, I'm going to show you which papers I chose for the 4-inch piece and the 2-inch piece when I Mod Podged them on. But all I'm going to do is I started with my 12-inch piece, and I'm going to add a nice little bit of Mod Podge all over the front or top of my MDF board here. And then I'm going to just take my green wood paper with the polka dots and place that right on top. Don't worry about any of the excess. We're going to go back and sand that off later. Just like the first one, I went ahead and Mod Podged my paper onto my 10-inch, 8-inch, and 6-inch piece. And for my 4-inch and 2-inch piece, I thought I was going to use the red wood look again, but I decided I was actually going to switch it up because, as you can see on there, I started green, then kind of like a lighter color, then it goes red, then there's the green. Well, I didn't want to go right back to red, so I decided I was going to grab that paper pack again and grab the paper that has the wording on it, like I did for the second one. And this 4-inch piece was perfect for this spot that said Merry Christmas in this beautiful font. So I just placed the MDF piece right over top of the wording, traced it out, and then I'm going to cut it out so that I can then glue it down, well, Mod Podge it down onto my board. Now, for my 2-inch piece, I was just going to use that red paper that I took off the 4-inch piece, but I fell in love with this red and green plaid that also had the wood look to it. So I'm just going to take a square of that and place that right onto our 2-inch piece, just like I did all of the rest of the pieces. And now once I have all my pieces together, I'm just going to go back through and sand off any of that excess. I was going to use my zip sander for this. I recommend using a zip sander for this, but now I cannot find my zip sander for this. So I just used a sanding block, just going around and removing any of that excess paper. This is going to get you the closest and smoothest edge possible. Using my watered down burnt umber and my distressing brush, I also get these off of Amazon. I will have them linked in the description box as well. I am just going to go ahead and start distressing all of my boards, and I'm going to just take this and swipe it on every single edge, every corner, going all the way around each one of these pieces. You'll kind of see I add more on the edges, a little bit on the sides. You just kind of want to distress it to your liking, and if you do not want to distress it, you absolutely do not have to do that at all. I did also decide to just add a little bit of that distressing, the burnt umber, into like the sides, just to kind of dullien it, make the look a little bit more dull. I don't know, you guys. I don't want to say dirty. Like, I kept wanting to say dirty, but I don't want to say dirty because that's not necessarily the look that I'm really going for. But you want it to just not be so that white, like so bright, or that red so bright. So I just took whatever was left on my brush and just dry brushed it on, just dulling it down a little bit and adding any distressing wherever I felt like I wanted there to be distressing. Once I had them distressed to my liking, I'm going to take that paint stir stick that I stained in the beginning, which again is our tree trunk, and I'm just going to start placing my blocks or my MDF pieces in the order that they go. I started with the 2-inch at the very top of the paint stir stick, and then I just spaced them out how I wanted them. You guys, by all means, you can make your pieces perfectly straight. I did purposely twist and kind of turn them a little bit to make them crooked. You'll see here I'm doing it just to give it a little bit more of an older, vintage, I don't know, rustic feel. I just thought it looked cute, and I am displaying it in my home. If you guys want to make the pieces straight, again, you absolutely can do that. But I just felt like them being a little wonky made it super cute. Then once I had my placement, I just went in with my hot glue gun and hot glued each one of these back down into its spot onto that paint stir stick. Once I had all my tree pieces in place, I'm going to grab these push pins from Dollar Tree. They are the Jot brand, and they do have the push pin, like the actual little tab on the back, but all we actually need is that round half pearl on top. It just has like a sticky dot attached to the thumbtack. So just peel these off super quick and easy. And we are going to actually use, oh wait, hold on, I need to look. Well, actually, I'll show you guys instead, because I do show you two different options. I just didn't have enough for one of the options, but what you could do is do like 4, 1 on each corner on all of those. I was going to do, I didn't have enough for 4, so I was going to do 4 on the 12-inch, 2 on the 10, 4 on the 8, and then so on and so forth. But I just thought it was a little bit much, so I just decided to skip all of those and only do 4 on every other board, and it worked out perfectly. To attach those, I just hot glued them on, and then I'm going to take some Mod Podge on a little teeny tiny paintbrush, and I want to rust these up. And I have seen so many creators do the cinnamon trick, where you just add some Mod Podge and put a little bit of cinnamon on there, shake off the excess, and you have this really nice rust look. So I just repeated those steps on all of those half pearls, adding the Mod Podge and then sprinkling on some cinnamon, shaking off the excess. And you guys, it really does work. I was actually pretty surprised. I grabbed some of these Dollar Tree bell garlands. They're on like a wire tie garland. And I also am going to rust these little bells up as well. And all I did for that was just take some Mod Podge again, add it onto the bell, place it down into my little bowl that has my cinnamon in it, as well as my burnt umber paint. I'm running out of bowls, you guys. I promise I am. And I'm tired of buying little plastic things. I waste so much plastic. If you guys have another option, please give me options down below because I definitely need it. So I decided to dust up those bells, or rust up those bells, and then set them off to the side. I'm losing my voice, of course. Then once the Mod Podge on my bells is nice and dry, I'm just going to bend it and twist it and shape it into the zigzaggy or curvy shape that I want. And once I have the look that I like, I'm just going to start adding some hot glue and tacking it down. Once I had my little jingle bells glued on, I'm going to take one of these little stars from Dollar Tree, and it's just a little wood cutout star that has gold glitter on it. I'm just going to take some of that burnt umber, dull this down a little bit, and add a little bit of darkness onto the edges of the star and just like along the outer sides of it. Along with doing that, I'm going to take a little bit of Mod Podge and also add some rust to this star as well, doing the cinnamon trick yet again. And I'm just going to place that Mod Podge on there, sprinkle some cinnamon on, shake off the excess. And after I add the amount of cinnamon that I want, this is where I go ahead and take my watered down burnt umber, and I'm just going to add a little bit of darkness in throughout that star, as well as on those rusted half gold pearls. Now I knew when it came time to add the star, I'm not going to be able to necessarily show you guys because this piece is so tall, it's not going to be in the view of the camera, but I'm going to just glue it right up on the top of the tree like you had just seen. Now I'm going to start making the base for this tree, and for the base I'm going to start off with a little wood round piece from Dollar Tree as well as a foam piece from Dollar Tree. It has seen better days, but it is definitely still usable, and we are getting at least one more use out of it. So I just hot glued that foam piece right on top of that round. I want this tree to have that look where it's sitting in a burlap sack. So I have this little burlap sack or bag that came from Amazon, and it had all these little lace trimmings in there, and or not really lace, but twine, I guess you could say. And I just decided to chuck those out, and I'm going to be using this bag for my little burlap sack. To add the tree to that foam base, I just shoved that paint stir stick down in there and then added some hot glue for some extra hold. And now I am going to cut off the brand tag for this burlap sack. So I just cut that off super simple with my scissors. And now I'm going to take that base, slide it right into the bottom of the bag. Now you're going to want to add some weight. So for that, I just used a bag of these Dollar Tree River Rocks. And once you have a nice good amount in there, this is not going to topple over whatsoever. Also, if you want to use anything else for weight, you absolutely can do that. I just used these rocks because that's what I had on hand. Now I knew these rocks were not going to fill my bag all the way up, plus if I did that, it would be way too heavy, so I just added one bag of those rocks. I did cut off the little tie that was already on this bag because I'm going to be adding it just a little bit further down. But to add a little bit more fullness to my burlap sack, I just took some white or cream colored burlap, and then I'm just going to place it right down inside the sack, going around that paint stir stick. And now, as you can see, it has a nice full look to it without a bunch of weight. To tie off the bag up here at the top, I just used that twine that I cut off from the drawstring, and I just wrapped it around a few times and then tied it into a knot. I wanted to create a cute little label or tag for on the burlap bag, but I did not have any drop cloth, so I decided to just use this cream colored burlap sack from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut out a nice little rectangle shape. I do end up cutting it into like a smaller square, but all I'm going to do is take these little straggly strands, pull some of them away so that it gives me this not so perfect edge and it looks distressed. I wasn't sure at first what exactly I was going to be putting on here. I didn't know if it was going to be a saying or the number 25. I do end up going with the number 25 for Christmas, but I wasn't sure how big I needed this, so I did cut it a little bit larger at first, but then, like I said, I did cut it down. Now I'm going to just dirty it up or distress it and add some of that burnt umber paint all around those jagged edges. And again, just like I've said with all the distressing that I have done, you do not have to distress if that is not your style. So for my numbers, I have these IOD stamps, and I just decided I was going to use those because I had them hanging on my wall. You could use stickers, you could use stencils. There is really so many different options. You do not have to have stamps. I just personally like the look of stamps. It does kind of give me that vintage or rustic vibe. So I just grabbed the number 2 and the number 5 to put those together for the number 25, obviously. And I just dab it into my ink pad. I did get the ink pad off of Amazon, and I'm just going to place it right into the center of that little tag that I made. At this point, I still wasn't sure if it was going to be a tag or if I was going to put it on front of the bag, but I did decide to just put it right there on the front of that burlap sack. I felt like it made it so stinking cute and definitely giving off a vintage vibe. I wanted to add some greenery to this as well, so I'm just going to take some Dollar Tree greenery picks. These, again, are both from Dollar Tree. You can use whatever floral picks, greenery picks that you personally like. All I'm going to do is just pull these pieces right off the actual wire pick. We do not need that. We just need the little greenery pieces. And I just started gluing them down up at the top of the sack where I tied that jute twine. You guys, let me just say, it is past 3 o'clock in the morning. Actually, it's 3:54 in the morning, and I have to get up very soon, so don't mind me if my mind is just not working right now. I am beyond, beyond exhausted, so as soon as I'm done with this, my butt is heading to bed. So like I did with that first pick, I'm just going to grab, I like actually mixing greenery colors. Like, I can't just do one type of greenery or one type of floral. I have to mix, whether it be colors or just texture, something. So I grabbed this pick that had some of the frost on it, and I just glued some of those pieces on as well. Once I had all my greenery in place, I just took a little bow that I had made and placed it right on top of that greenery. And then I do go ahead and glue the star down. Again, like I said, you guys could not see that because it was up so high, but I glue it on and this project is done. For this DIY, I started out with the tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, also known as Jenga blocks, but all I did was take the super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree, which I've said it in previous videos, and I will say it again, that super glue wood glue is amazing. So I just add a little bit of the super glue wood glue and a little bit of hot glue onto the Jenga block pieces, and then I start just gluing them together until I have 7 Jenga blocks glued together. Right now I'm making the side panels to the lanterns, so you could make these longer or shorter depending on how big you would like your lantern to be. But once you have 7 of those glued together, you want to make 4 of those total, so therefore you will have 4 rows of 7 Jenga blocks. The 7 Jenga blocks glued together is for the larger lantern. For the smaller lantern, I glued 5 Jenga blocks together instead of 7. And again, I used the super glue wood glue as well as some hot glue to glue those together, and you will do 4 rows of those as well. Once all the Jenga block pieces are glued together, you could leave them like this, but I personally like to use the Dollar Tree spackling to go over the Jenga block pieces just to make it all nice and smooth so that it doesn't look like it is a bunch of game pieces glued together, and it really looks like a nice long side panel. Again, this is just personal preference. You could leave them exactly how they are and start painting them, but I personally like to take this extra little step just to give them that really clean finished look. Once the spackling was dry, I do take my zip sander and just sand it down just a little bit more to make sure that it is all completely smooth. Now that I have all of them sanded, I just take my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White and I paint all 8 of those side pieces. So Dollar Tree has many different options on what you could use for the tops and bottoms of your lanterns. I've made so many different lanterns, and I believe they were all literally everything was from Dollar Tree. So trust me, there's so many different things. For these lanterns, I'm using these wood boxes from Dollar Tree. They do come in 3 different sizes, and they have these cute little metal label holders on them, and I just remove them with a little screwdriver, and I'm going to do that to 2 of the larger boxes and 2 of the medium-sized boxes. I do not need any of the smaller boxes at all. So again, you just need 2 larger and 2 medium boxes. Then I take the white Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White yet again, and I paint all of those boxes as well. To start assembling the lantern, I'm using the longer pieces first to build the larger lantern, and I added some of that super glue wood glue as well as some hot glue again, and I just glue that longer piece to the inside corner of one of the larger boxes. I repeated the same steps with the other 3 longer Jenga block pieces, adding the super glue wood glue as well as the hot glue and gluing it to the inside corner of the larger box. I do want to point out, you want to make sure that your label holder piece that you're going to be screwing back on is facing the way that you want it to be, which is hopefully facing forward. Add some glue to the top of the Jenga blocks, and then you can place that second box right on top, and you have this already nice lantern shape. And then I do the same exact steps yet again for the smaller lantern, which is taking now the 5-piece Jenga block pieces and gluing those to the inside corner, and then making sure I place that smaller box right on top and gluing those pieces to those corners as well. I want to add kind of like a second layer to these lanterns, so I'm just going to use one of these square, they're really nice and chunky. It is just a decor piece from Dollar Tree. It has a beautiful saying on it, but I do have several of them, so I was okay with taking this one apart. But it does have a little bit of a stubborn burlap on it. If I would have maybe got it wet or even used my heat gun, it probably would have came off so much easier, but it still wasn't too much trouble. But then I did find out that there was these little tiny nail pieces that held that saying on there, so all I did was just pull those out. Now, because that burlap was on there, it did leave these little hairy pieces glued down on here, so I did just use my zip sander to sand any of that off. And once I had that nice and smooth, I painted it the same color as all of the rest of the lantern, which is the Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White. And you guys, I'm just going to say it now, that is the white paint that I used the entire video. So I'm just going to say white chalk paint from here on out. That larger piece is for the second layer of the larger lantern. This little small Halloween decor piece is the second layer for the smaller lantern, and it was only $1 at Walmart, but it was marked down to 50 cents, so I did get that for 50 cents. But again, Dollar Tree has many options that you can choose from. I did not have to paint the entire piece with the white chalk paint, but I did just go in at the sides and on top so that you could not see any type of color and it all looked completely white. Now for the tippy tops of our lantern, I got the Christmas lantern around Christmas time last year, but the black lantern that is for Halloween, I did just get within the last few weeks around Halloween this year. So all I did was pop these really nice curved tops off. And this part is kind of funny. I just had to leave it in there. Okay, so I got out my hot knife because they do have these little tabs to hold them onto the second larger part of the lantern. And I thought for some reason they were going to be kind of hard to come off. So I was just like, well, we'll bust out the hot knife and it'll be super easy. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is even taking longer than probably just cutting them off with my scissors. So let's see if that'll work. And yeah, it worked so easy. So just cut off the little tabs with your scissors and do not worry about the hot knife. Once those tabs are cut off, you have the perfect tops to your lantern, and I did try and take them outside to spray paint them because they are plastic and I just hate trying to actually hand paint plastic. But it did not work out because the paint I was using was more of a satin, like not matte finish at all. So I just came inside and painted them with the white chalk paint. Then I use my favorite bamboo sticks. You guys see me use them all of the time. I literally ran out in this video and I was so sad, but I'm definitely going to be getting more very soon. I have to. They are just a staple in my craft room. I painted several of those white as well, and then I'm using that little tiny square piece that is the Halloween decor piece, and I glue one of the tops to our lanterns right on there, and look at that. I mean, that is a perfect fit. You cannot get any more perfect than that. Now, the second lantern, which is the larger lantern, I wanted it to have a little bit of a different look, so I chose something a little bit more big and bulky for the second layer, and then I glued that top piece from the other lantern right on top of that nice bulky piece that we painted white. And I just love the look of these, and they just are perfect tops to lanterns. And if you want the ring to stand straight up, you could just add a tiny bit of hot glue to the side and it will stand straight up. Then I take some of that Dollar Tree spackling again and I just go over any of the parts where you can see any creases. And again, you guys, this is just personal preference. Again, it is such a clean finished look. I always try and do this with my pieces because I really enjoy the finished piece. Look at how perfect that comes out. You cannot even tell that that was two different pieces. To create the X's on the sides of the lanterns, I take those bamboo sticks that I painted with a white chalk paint and I just cut them down to size, hold them up to the inside of the lantern where I would like them to be, and then I just glue them into place. You could also use dowel rods to create these X's. You do not have to have these bamboo sticks. I just personally like them because they are kind of flat instead of round. So they're just not as bulky and they just come in handy so very much. So whatever I did to the larger lantern, I also did to the smaller lantern. I wanted these to be a pair, but just look slightly, ever so slightly different. So again, I just cut those bamboo sticks down to size and then glued them inside the lantern, creating the X's on both sides. Now here's why earlier I had said to make sure the holes for the label holder is facing the front of your lantern, because I do go ahead and add these label holders back onto the lanterns, and I just place them right where they were previously and just screw them right back on. You can hot glue them on if you would like, but I do think adding the screws just gives it a more finished look. I also screwed the metal label holders onto the larger lantern as well. Now to put the tops on the lantern, and I did forget to mention earlier that those plastic lanterns that I took apart for the tops are from Dollar Tree as well. I started with the larger lantern first, and I added some hot glue onto the bottom of our bulky piece and then placed it right center at the top of our larger lantern. And once I had that one on, I did the same exact steps to the smaller lantern, placing hot glue on the bottom of that little Halloween piece that has our lantern top on it and placing it center on the smaller lantern. Again, because I like that nice, clean, finished look, I did add some of that Dollar Tree spackling in those cracks as well to give it a smooth finish. So while I was at Dollar Tree the other day in the Christmas section, I found these cute little wood shape angels, and my first thought was they were adorable, and my second thought was those would make perfect little feet or legs to home decor or whatever you would like to put on them. So I decided to pull off those little paper wings. They came off super easy, and then I used that, again, white Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I painted all of those little angels, which were now our little feet, to our lanterns. And I did end up painting 8 of those so that I could have 4 on each one of the lanterns. So I do add some hot glue onto the bottom, and I always use the Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks. They are absolutely phenomenal. I always have them in my hot glue gun, and most of the items that I use down in the description box if you guys would ever like to check them out. So once again, I just glue one of those onto each one of the corners of the bottom box, and I am so in love with how these turned out. And here's the thing, I know this is mainly a fall and Christmas video, but I wanted to make these so simple looking that they could be for any holiday or any season. You could use these all year round if you would like. I seriously think those little wood angels are absolutely perfect legs for these lanterns, and they could be used in so many different ways. You could really dress these up or just add some LED candles. Do not add real candles. And let me just show you guys these Christmas ones. I love them for Christmas. And again, you could put so many different items inside of these and decorate them for every season. For this project, I picked up 2 of these hanging wood pieces from Dollar Tree. I do believe these are base wood live edge planks. These ones do have a hanger, and I'm just going to remove the hanger I tried pulling this one off, but it was not coming off. So I did have to cut this one, but I muscled up the strength to just yank out the other ones. You can use, there's like a little staple in there, so you can just easily pry that out as well. So do you see how these wood planks have the bark still on the outside of the edge there? I believe that's what the live edge means, and I actually want to keep that there and paint the rest of it. So I don't know what I was thinking right there, but I put the tape in the wrong spot. I actually want to cover that live edge so that when I go to paint the center of the wood plank, it's not going to get on the live edge, and then once I remove the tape, the live edge will still be there. So I'm just taking at first some yellow painter's tape. It did not stick very well. I did not have very good luck with this yellow painter's tape throughout the last few videos that I've used it in, so I think I'm going to stick to the blue stuff or the green stuff from now on, because that yellow was just not working for me. So I went around both of the sides on these planks and just covered that live edge with some blue painter's tape. And then I'm going to take some chalk paint and I just start covering this plank. I quickly realized this is going to take a lot of paint. So I have watched Brandy from the DIY struggle for probably at the beginning now. Like, I love her channel and I have learned so much from her channel. And if you have some thick paint or if you're working with wood, use a little bit of water in a spray bottle, and that is going to help you really get that paint moving around, and it's going to go into those cracks into the wood. You might have to do another coat because it will dull it down a little bit, but I was actually okay with like a whitewash look, so I just went ahead and did that on both of the planks. Along with painting the tops of the wood planks, I'm also going to be painting one side on both of these, and it's going to be the outside. See, I'm going to be gluing these together, so I'm not going to worry about the inside edge that I will be gluing these together because you're not going to see that. So all you have to do is paint those outside edges. And I went ahead before my paint dried. I removed those painter's tape pieces and exposed that live edging. I did run my finger across just to smooth out that edge a little bit if there was any spots where I needed to. And now you can see where I'm actually going to be attaching these together. And to do that, I actually have a wood glue, or yes, wood glue, hot glue stick, I should say. And I'm just going to place that in my hot glue gun. I showed you guys that was what was in there. And then I'm going to use that hot glue, wood glue, to glue those two pieces together. And then I'm going to flip it over onto the back, or onto its front, exposing the back. And I'm going to add a few craft sticks just to make sure that there is some extra security. Now, the vision that I had for this, it was very slightly elevated off of the ground, and it's going to be lit up from underneath. So I have these half wood beads. I bought these off of Amazon. It came in a pack where it had a ton of different sizes, and you got a ton of each size. I will have them linked down below in the description box. All I did was I took some painter's tape, placed it onto my desk, and I'm just going to stick those on there so that I can take that white paint and just paint these, not really perfectly, but just kind of covering them. And I just go around and paint every single one of those little half wood beads. And then once they are dry, I'm going to just pick each and every one off. I do start on the outside corners first, just because I wasn't quite sure how many I was actually going to use and where I was actually going to place them. I knew I wanted at least 4 on the outside edge, and I wanted some in the center for some support. And then I just had 2 left over, so I placed those in the center of each board. To get this to light up from the bottom, I'm using this strand of fairy lights that I bought off of Amazon. I personally love getting my fairy lights from Amazon because I always get the ones with the really teeny tiny little thin battery pack. And I wanted to show you guys, make sure that if you make this project, glue your battery pack to where the little on and off switch is sticking out from the side. I glued it right there on the edge where the white part is actually right up against the edge, and then that little tab to turn it on and off is sticking out so that I don't actually have to pick the piece up to turn it on and off. Now, really quickly, I'm just going to show you guys, I just took my fairy lights and tacked it down onto the bottom of the board using some hot glue. I also thought about using red or green fairy lights. I think that would be a really cool idea as well. Now we have this beautiful light up live edge elevated tray. At this point, you could put whatever you would like on here. One thing that I have also noticed trending quite a bit lately are like the tree groupings where they take quite a few different types of the Christmas trees and they just group them together in one little setting, and I love the look of it, and I just really thought that it was super cute. But again, the price was not so cute, so I knew I had a bunch of these Dollar Tree trees laying around in my craft stash. You guys can use as many or as little or whatever color you would like. If you would like all the sparkly ones, or if you would like the white and the silver, I think that would be a beautiful combination. But all I'm doing is taking a few of the green ones, some of the sparkly ones, some of the green ones with the faux snow on there, and I'm just setting them where I would personally like them and where I like the look of it. And once I have them placed where I like that look, I'm just going to go back in and add a little bit of hot glue onto the bottom of the trees and just place them back down in that spot. Once I had all my larger trees in place, I did gather up a few of these smaller trees. Again, these are all from Dollar Tree, and I've collected them over the years and just decided to sprinkle these in throughout as well. Again, I place them where I like them. I like to actually see where I'm going to put something, and then I will go in and glue it down. I know it takes a little bit of extra time, but I feel like it just helps me make sure that I know that that's really where I want to glue this down at. So once I had all my little trees glued down, I did decide to go in and add some fairy lights throughout the trees as well. So not only is it going to light up from the bottom, but the trees are going to light up, and anything that lights up, I'm all for it. To wrap my trees, I just used another one of those Amazon fairy light strands, and I did not glue the battery pack down yet. I just tucked it back behind one of the trees, and then I'm just going to start wrapping the fairy lights going all the way around and in throughout the trees. I did end up using two strands of the fairy lights, and I just kind of started from one side, went to the middle, and then worked on the other side and went towards the middle. And now I'm just going to add some hot glue, gluing my little battery packs down hidden back here behind the back, but again, making sure the little tab is hanging out. And once you have that, this DIY is done. Really quickly, I wanted to jump on and add that I decided to put some faux snow down at the bottom of the trees, and to do that, I just added some Mod Podge and then sprinkled it on. Dollar Tree carries these thicker wood shapes. You do want a larger size one. They do have smaller ones than these, but you don't have to have this exact shape. If you want a different shape, go for it. This is just the one that I chose, and I did take the white chalk paint once again, and I painted the entire thing. For this project, I need to make a hole in the center of this, so I just take a ruler and mark down where, or at least close to where the center is. You guys, I recommend this little tool so much. It is so easy to use, and it is a drill bit. It comes with many different sizes, and it is so easy to twist. I got it off of Amazon. I will have it linked. If you like making bead garlands and you need to put holes in the beads, or just use lots of things that you need to put holes in, this is a perfect tool for your craft room. At Dollar Tree, they have this 2-pack of dowel rods, and I'm going to be taking both of them and using the white chalk paint. I give both of them a complete coat so that I'm going to be able to take one and I'm going to attach it to the board. So I take my little tool again and I make a hole. The reason why this is important is because without that hole, when you go ahead and put a screw in there, it can split the wood. So it is best to make a smaller hole than whatever size your screw is first, and then you take the screw, and I do use a drill. I mean, I'm sure a screwdriver would have worked. It is super easy, and I just make it to where the screw is barely seen coming out the other side. Then I take the dowel rod, place the screw in the hole in the dowel rod, and now I'm going to secure the screw in with the drill. Now that the screw is in place, the dowel rod is standing straight up on the piece of wood, exactly how I need it to be, but of course I got the white dirty with my hands. Using the second white dowel rod, I mark it off where it is 5 inches, and using my miter saw, I will have this linked down below in the description box. I just use it and cut off 5-inch pieces, and I do make 2 of those. Now that I have the 2 5-inch pieces cut, I'm going to take the other dowel rod and base and place these where I think I want to attach them. Again, I like seeing before I actually make anything permanent. Now I'm just going to take my little tool once again and add the hole in the bottom of it. And then I do also add a hole in the center of the dowel rod, not the center, I guess in the side, but you want to have it centered. See how I'm holding it up here? You can see that it is on the side, but it is coming through in the center. You add that hole because once again, when you take that screw, you do not want it to split the wood. So now I'm going to take the screw and the drill, place it going into that hole that I had just made until I start seeing it come out the other side. Now I just grab that 5-inch dowel rod piece and I twist it onto the screw a little bit, and then I use the drill to get the screw in the rest of the way. I freaked out here thinking that I split the wood, but I didn't. It was just a little piece of paint that got chipped off, but this is how it should look once you have that first piece on. And for the second 5-inch piece, I'm going to do the same thing. However, I'm going to put it onto the other side of the long dowel rod, and I'm going to also lower it. So there's going to be one 5-inch piece higher on one side than the other side. I attached that side just like I did the top higher side, and here is how it should look so far. I ended up finding these half wood beads that are pretty much the exact size of these dowel rods. They're slightly bigger to the point where you really don't even notice, and I thought it would look really pretty on the ends and the top of each dowel rod just to give it more of a finished look. So I take 3 of them and glue each one at the top or end of the dowel rod. And once I have all 3 of those glued down, I do go ahead and paint them white with the white chalk paint, as well as any finger marks that I got on the base. I also painted the screws white so you did not see them as much as well. At Dollar Tree, I picked up 2 of these black metal lanterns. They have a little clasp here so that you can actually open up the top of them. And they do also have these little gold bees on them. They're very thin metal, and all you have to do is bend them back and forth and they will pop right off. And you can always save them for a different project. Once all the bees were off, I covered them completely with some white chalk paint. This next part, I do recommend using battery-operated tea lights. However, I did not have any on hand, so just for video purposes, I am going to be using these glass candles from the Dollar Tree. And they do come in a 2-pack, so that was perfect. For this project, I will not be gluing anything down permanently inside because I do want to change out the decor for each season or each holiday. I decided I wanted to go with this greenery again. I really love the little pine cones that is attached to it. So I grabbed a few pieces with and without the pine cones, and now I'm just going to stuff them around the candle right inside the lantern. And again, I will not be gluing anything down. If you would like to do so, you are definitely more than welcome. I added the greenery around the candle in both of the lanterns, and then I decided I also wanted to add just a little bit of these white berries. I feel like it really pulls the entire look together. Once I had all the berries on that I wanted, all that was left to do was hang it onto these wood side pieces, and this DIY is done. For this DIY, I'll be using one of the round wood ornaments. I stained mine in the walnut color. Then I took one of the Dollar Tree glass tumblers and used 3 of these bottle brush trees from the Dollar Tree, hot glued down at the bottom, and added those right to our base. You could add anything you like to this, but I decided to go with a little pine cone and a few berries. Dollar Tree also has this beautiful faux snow, so I added some of that to our glass tumbler. Now I'm just simply hot gluing around the top of the tumbler, then taking our trees and sliding that down so that the wood ornament is onto our glass. And then just flip it over, give it a little shake, and you have this cute little Christmas, almost like a snow globe. There was a little bit of hot glue showing down at the bottom, so I decided to take some jute twine and just simply wrap that around the bottom of the base. I had this little glass jar from the Dollar Tree. I actually put my cinnamon in it, but I wanted to use the top of it, so I just took the top off, added some hot glue, and then put that to the top of our little Christmas decor. And then I'm just taking some nautical rope and hiding that little plastic part so that you cannot see it. You could add anything you would like to this. I am just taking a simple jute twine bow and adding that on there. You could add any bow that you would like. I think this turned out so pretty. I think you could put so many different things inside of here. I think even lights would be really adorable. And I actually decided to put it in our lantern that we'll be making later in the video. Another wildly popular item on Etsy was the wood Christmas trees. Whether they are large, medium, or small, you can find many different options. I decided I wanted to make a medium-sized one, but also incorporate some details from these smaller ones here, like the words and the snowflakes. So for this DIY, I'm using these 2x18-inch wood pieces from Dollar Tree. I pick these up anytime that I see them, and then I'm also going to cut them starting at 10 inches and working my way up to 1. Now, I do use my little mini saw that I will have linked down below in the description box. These do sell out fast every time I do a video, so if you want the saw, definitely make sure you get to the description box to check that out. Now, after I cut them down from 10 all the way to 1, I did decide the 1 was a little bit too small, so I just got rid of that and then kept these pieces here. For this exact size tree, I bought 4 of those 18-inch wood pieces from Dollar Tree, and I did have a little bit left over. For my tree, I wanted to have more of a smoother triangle shape instead of having those harsh square ends. So I just take a pen and a ruler and just make a mark about a ½ inch in on each piece of wood. And then I draw a line going from that mark down to the bottom corner on both sides. I made my cuts this way because it was just easier for me because I am still new at woodworking, but when you actually cut your pieces down to the sizes that you need, you can also just cut them with that angle already on there, so then you don't have to make the lines and cut them after you already have them down to their size. Once all of the wood pieces are cut, you can place them all back in their order, and now they have a much smoother triangle shape. Some of the wood pieces are already stained because I had them for quite some time and was going to use them in a previous project but decided against that. So I had them left over and figured I might as well use them, and I was going to stain these pieces anyways. So I like using the faux stain technique, which is just whatever color paint you would like to use and water mixed together. I used the apple barrel burnt umber paint as well as a little bit of black chalk paint just to darken it up, and then mix some water in it and you have a faux stain. To hold the tree together, I also stained a large paint stir stick as well. Once the stain was completely dry, I wanted to have that white shiplap wood look to it, so I take this bare white chalk paint. I've never used it before, so I figured I've had it for a while, so we might as well use it. How I like to create my shiplap wood look is I take a chippy brush, I turn it to its side, basically like a vertical position. I dip it into the paint and I start making streaks along the piece of wood. You can see me do it here, right here. And I then turn my paintbrush back to the horizontal normal position, and I go back and forth across the entire piece of wood, blending those spots in, and you get this beautiful shiplap look. Now, I do believe the writing that was on the picture of that little white tree was handwritten. However, my handwriting is just not the best. So I did use my Cricut machine. I cut out all of the words that were on that original little tree, and I did add a few extra words just because my tree is quite bigger. If you don't have a Cricut and you have good handwriting, you could write it out. If you also don't have a Cricut, you could use Dollar Tree sticker letters or any other kind of sticker letters that you may like. This next step here I thought made a world of difference. I just take that same chippy brush, dip it very slightly into the paint, and brush it back and forth on all of the words, and it just makes it look so much more distressed. Now that it is time to assemble the tree, I place the paint stir stick down first, then I take the smallest piece to our tree, the very top piece, and I use some Dollar Tree super glue wood glue as well as some hot glue, and I glue it up at the top of the paint stir stick. Okay, I can't help but laugh at this part. So now I start taking the other pieces and I start gluing them down. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's definitely something missing here. As I took a break for a little bit, I took the wood pieces out of my craft room with me, and I did not realize that my 2-year-old got a hold of the joy piece. So thinking that they were all there, I used my hot glue and I start spacing them out just about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. And then I realized, wait a minute, the joy is not there. So I took that very top piece off, the smallest piece, and I glued the joy there instead. And I start gluing the rest of the pieces on while I think of a way to fix that, but all I did was take another piece of paint stir stick, I cut it down, I also stained it, and then I glue it up at the top of the joy, and then I glue it the smallest piece to our tree, the top piece at the very top of that paint stir stick. Again, if you guys do not make this mistake, which I highly doubt you will, all you have to do is just glue them on from the smallest to largest, about 1/2 inch apart. For the base on my tree, I'm going to be using one of these wood drawers from Dollar Tree. They have that cutout in them. If you cannot find these, you can use the wood box that has the wood top that also has the cutout shape in it. And I'm using this burlap that I got off of Amazon. I will have it linked down below in the description box. You can also use Dollar Tree burlap. They have rolls that will work. You'll just need a few more of these strips than I actually used. For this size burlap, I used 3 pieces. I also made sure I cut the pieces long enough so that they would go up the side of that wood piece and also have some left over once I bunch it up at the top. And I just kind of wrapped it up, making sure that I had enough. And then I'm going to take my tree and 2 Jenga blocks or tumbling tower blocks from Dollar Tree, and I add some hot glue onto the Jenga block side, and then I glue it to the back of the tree. Well, the back of the tree trunk, which is the bottom of the paint stir stick, and I also glued one to the front. So now we can grab our box and add a decent amount of hot glue down inside in the center, and then we can press our Jenga blocks down inside. Next, I just start taking those burlap pieces and I start pulling them up nice and tight on that square piece, wrapping it around kind of with my hand around the paint stir stick right above the square cube box, whatever you'd like to call it. And I just bunched it up and kept pulling each one of those pieces up so that it has this really pretty bunched look up at the top, and it looks like it is sitting in a square burlap wrapped basket. Then I take some of this twine that I got from a set that was from Christmas, I believe, last year, and I tie it on to the paint stir stick right above the stick, but I don't tie it very tight because I did decide to add some rocks just to make it nice and heavy so that it stays standing up. And then I tie that twine really nice and tight around the paint stir stick and tie it into a bow. And then I do also pull a few strands of the burlap off on the ends just to give it more of a frayed look. These wood Christmas laser cutouts were gifted to me by a sweet subscriber, but they do also have laser cutouts at Dollar Tree that you can use. I do know that these ones are from Walmart. I am not sure of the price because they were a gift, but I do know that they are from Walmart. And I just take a few of the different style of snowflakes and hot glue them onto my tree here and there. And I think this DIY turned out absolutely stunning. Using two of the larger shadow boxes from the Dollar Tree, I took off any of the extra parts and then painted both boxes in my white chalk paint, and you want to paint the whole thing. Then you are going to need two of these canvases from the Dollar Tree. They are the longer rectangular shape. I will put the size in the description box. And I'm just taking my rollerblade from Dollar Tree and cutting off the canvas part. And if you go along the outside of the staples, this will come off fairly easy. Once you remove the canvas, you have this perfect frame. And we will do this for both of our canvases. Dollar Tree also has these smaller shadow boxes, and I'm just taking it and painting it white with my white chalk paint. You do not have to worry about painting the inside of the shadow box because we are going to be putting this face down. Now I'm just taking a few of the larger popsicle sticks or craft sticks from the Dollar Tree, and I'm painting those white as well, and I painted 4 of them. Using some wood glue and hot glue, I just simply take my frame, the canvas frame, and I add it to our shadow box, which will be our base. And you guys, these literally go right in. I mean, you couldn't find a better fit, I promise. They are perfect. Once you have the first side done, you're going to go ahead and do the exact same with the other side. And you guys see how good those go in. I'm just obsessed with this. I'm going to make so many of these lanterns. Once we have our sides done, we're going to move on to the top. Using some wood glue and hot glue again, we are going to put that onto our side canvas pieces and then take our top shadow box and simply snap that right down into place. Now taking that smaller shadow box that we got from the Dollar Tree and painted white, we are going to simply place that on the top of our lantern. If you have any seams or cracks that you don't like, you can definitely go in with some Dollar Tree spackling and just fill those in. I got this little Halloween lantern from the Dollar Tree, of course, and I took off the top piece because I just wanted that part right there, and I painted it white. And now I'm just taking some hot glue and adding it to the little parts that are on there, and I cut down those popsicle sticks to fit our sides, and I just add a piece of the popsicle stick to all 4 sides. Once I have all the popsicle pieces on, I just go ahead and glue that right to the top of our lantern, and your base for your lantern is done. You can definitely decorate this any way that you like. You can put this for any season, any holiday. I'm just obsessed with it and cannot wait to decorate. I wanted to show you guys a couple ideas on how you could decorate. So I'm just taking some Dollar Tree greenery and putting those in kind of in a circular form. And then I loved this red sparkly stuff, and this silver sparkly greenery was absolutely amazing. So I put a few of those in there as well. Using one of these glass vases or candle holders from the Dollar Tree, I added some of the faux snow, and I went in with a candle and some little bells from the Dollar Tree, placed those right down inside the vase, and then added that right to our lantern. And here's how this lantern turned out. I think it is just so pretty, and it is actually pretty big, you guys. It is like almost 20 inches, and look how stunning it looks at night. I just adore this lantern so much. Let me know in the comments how you would decorate this lantern and what holiday you would be most excited to use it for. I'm using one of these 18-inch pieces of wood from Dollar Tree, as well as 3 Sherwin-Williams 5-gallon paint stir sticks. I started by cutting the handles off of the paint stir sticks just by using my miter shears at first, but that was quite difficult. So for the next step of cutting, I needed to cut this paint stir stick in half. So I just used a marker and marked the halfway mark. And instead of using my miter shears, I'm using my little mini saw. This thing is so cute. You guys know I love this saw so much, and it works so well. I mean, you can cut a Jenga block like butter. So I cut those down so that they are both the same size. Then I'm going to take the 18-inch piece of wood and the paint stir stick that I only cut the handle off of. Again, you're going to cut the handle off of all 3 of the paint stir sticks. Then I just take one of the paint stir sticks, add some super glue, wood glue, as well as some hot glue for immediate hold, and then I glue it right to the center of that 18-inch wood piece. I do want to mention I will have a link down below in the description box for the little mini saw. I personally got it off of Amazon, but you can get it at lots of hardware stores like Home Depot, Harbor Freight, or even places like Walmart will have something similar. I personally like shopping on Amazon because with me being an above knee amputee and not having a prosthetic leg, I walk with crutches and it is really hard for me to get out and about to the stores. Anyways, back to the craft. So I take the paint stir stick that I cut in half and I start gluing it to either side of the paint stir stick that I glued on top of the 18-inch wood piece. Once I have the sides glued on, I start adding the super glue wood glue as well as hot glue, and I do get the super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree and it works amazing. I add that to the top of the sides and then glue the third paint stir stick on top. To make this even sturdier, you could use a glue like E6000. I use the Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks. They work phenomenal, but I did want to try and make sure it was a little bit more sturdy. So I was just going to shoot a few brad nails inside the frame, but I did not realize I was out of brad nails. So instead I take a Dollar Tree skewer stick and I just measure it where each of the corners are on the frame, and then I cut it down to individual pieces, which I needed 4 of those pieces. I start adding some hot glue onto each one of those little dowel rod pieces. I'm not sure if they were dowel rods or skewer sticks. I believe it was a skewer stick, but either way, a Dollar Tree dowel rod will work as well. And I add enough hot glue so that it will adhere to both of the paint stir sticks when I place it up in the corner on each 4 corners so that it really adheres all of the pieces of the frame together. Now that my frame is built, I use my black chalk paint, and the chalk paint, I don't think I mentioned what I'm using. It is the Folk Art black chalk paint. It is a very, very dark black. Normally I only have to use 1 coat, and that's exactly what I did with this project as well. I just did 1 coat on the entire frame. At Dollar Tree, they've had these picture hanging kits for quite some time now, and they really are nice. They have different size nails and wire and just different things that you can use to hang pictures with. And for $1.25, I think it really is a great deal. Also inside this kit are these little loop screw hooks. I'm so sorry, the name is totally slipping my mind. Let me know down in the comments if you know the name, and I will try and remember it this time. However, I'm going to take 4 of these hooks. You can use more or less depending on the size bulb you're going to use or how many Christmas bulbs you're going to hang. As you could see, I just turned the frame upside down and started screwing one of the hooks on either end, making sure that I have it spaced out evenly, or as even as I could get it by eyeballing it. You could definitely measure this as well, but I just went ahead with eyeballing and screwed 4 of those hooks in total. You could leave the hooks gold if you would like, but because I'm displaying this in my home this year, I don't have any gold in my home decor, so I used the black chalk paint that I used for the frame to paint the hooks as well. Now the frame is complete and we can start decorating. You, of course, can use any kind of Christmas bulbs that you would like. You can use sentimental ones. I think that would be adorable idea to display any sentimental Christmas bulbs that you might have, maybe your children's little baby Christmas ornaments that you have. I know I definitely have one for each one of my children. But either way, what I decided to do was take these. This is a pack of Christmas ornaments that I got from Dollar Tree, and the tops were gold. So again, I did decide to take the black chalk paint and paint those black as well. Then I'm going to take the black cotton twine. Once again, this is also from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start tying pieces, and I did not measure the twine. I just made sure it was longer than what I needed, but I just simply tied the cotton twine onto the Christmas ornament, and then I made sure it had a nice long tail or piece of the twine hanging off, and I cut off the excess. And I did this with 2 of the red and white Christmas ornaments that I got from Dollar Tree. The next 2 ornaments I will be using are these really neatly shaped matte black Christmas bulbs that I got in a pack from Walmart. It was a really nice size pack for a great price, at least in my opinion. And just like with the Dollar Tree bulbs, I added the black cotton twine so that I could hang the bulbs on my frame. To hang the bulbs on the frame, I lay the frame on its side, and then I just pull up the cotton twine and place the bulb where I would like it to hang. And once I like the position that it is in, I just tie the cotton twine right to that hook that we screwed in at the top of the frame. You could use anything that you would like to hang your Christmas bulbs. I think using fishing wire would be so neat because it would also make it look like the bulbs are floating in the air. When hanging my Christmas bulbs, I alternated the styles, and then I also made sure that they were different lengths as well. You can make them hang all at the same level if you would like, but I made the black bulbs hang a little bit lower than the red and white bulbs, and all I did was simply just tie them where I would like them to hang onto the hooks. Once I had all my Christmas bulbs hanging on the frame where I would like them, I want to add some greenery on top, and I really love the greenery that is on this grapevine garland that I got from Walmart. I don't remember the price, but I do know that it had to have been a decent price because I don't buy anything if it is horribly priced. So I know it was definitely worth the price, and I really liked the fact that the greenery pieces are individually put into that grapevine garland so that you could pull those out. They are glued, so you kind of have to wiggle them, but they do come out individually. I used 4 of those greenery picks, and I used 2 at first, placing them so that the ends are intertwined together. And then I just take those 2 and place them up at the top of my frame, making sure that I can get it as centered as possible. I don't worry about the parts that are kind of falling down because I'm going to place them where I would like later on. But I do want the greenery to stay in place, so I use some hot glue and just glue it right in at the center. Then I take some of the other stems and I add some hot glue on the end and place it up underneath the first set of greenery so that the greenery is fuller, and we also have longer greenery on the sides. Now that I have all 4 of the stems glued on, I'm going to start gluing the greenery where I would like it to be. So I just pick up the greenery on either side and I add a few lines of hot glue and glue the greenery down, but I do let a few of the strands hang down. I do not glue all of the greenery, just enough to make sure that there is some on top. Like I had mentioned, I let a few pieces fall and hang as I was gluing the greenery that I wanted to stay at the top of the frame down. So then I can just take those pieces that are hanging and I just add hot glue here and there, placing those greenery pieces exactly where I want them to hang on the frame. Now that my greenery is where I would like it, I add some hot glue to the center of the greenery and add this buffalo check bow that I made a while back but never used. I wanted to incorporate a little bit more white to go with the white that's already in the ornaments that I used. So I used the bell off of this door hanger. I liked the size of it and the fact that it was a matte white. So I just cut it off and then hot glued it right to the bottom of my bow. Now, I didn't really care for how you could see hot glue in the greenery back behind the bow, so I just took another little piece of that buffalo check ribbon that I had used to make the bow, and this was made with Dollar Tree ribbon. And I wish I had the footage of me making the bow. I do believe I made it last year, but anyways, all I did was cut a piece off and then hot glue it to the back of the bow so that it has a more finished look. Dollar Tree has so many different berries that you can use. I wanted to use the white berries off of this greenery from Dollar Tree. They do also have a red berry greenery just like this. So it was really easy to just pull these little foam berries off. And I just pulled enough off so that I could take a few and just hot glue them where I would like to up in the greenery. I didn't do too many, just a few to really bring out the white in the project. Once I had enough berries to my liking glued on, this DIY was done. For this DIY, I'm using 5 of these 12-inch wood pieces from Dollar Tree. I only need 4 for now, so I do set 1 aside. And I'm going to use this super glue wood glue. It is absolutely amazing. Yes, it is a super glue wood glue. I always cut the hole too big, but this stuff is from Dollar Tree, and let me tell you, you really probably don't even need the hot glue. I'm just so used to doing it and also wanted to make sure, but that stuff works amazing. So I use the super glue wood glue and some hot glue, and I glue 2 of those pieces together so that I have 2 really long pieces of wood instead of 4 smaller pieces. So again, you're gluing 2 of the boards together, then the other 2, so that you have 2 really long boards that you can use for your new centerpiece. Once you have those 2 longer pieces done, you will also need a long sign from Dollar Tree. I used this Easter sign. I removed anything off of the front as well as the tag and hanger. And you guys, this fits on these wood pieces. Well, the wood pieces fit on it absolutely perfect. Like, they are the exact same length. As you can see, I placed the boards down on either side of the sign where I want to glue them. Then I just pick one of the boards up, add some of that super glue wood glue, as well as a little bit of hot glue, and then I glue that board down to the side of the sign. And I flip the sign around and do the same thing over on the other side as well, using that super glue wood glue and hot glue and gluing that wood piece down. Once we have these longer sides glued down, we need to do the other sides. So we're going to take that 5th piece of wood, and I use the cutest little saw in the world. I got it off of Amazon. I will have a link down in the description box, but I just took that 5th piece of wood and kind of held it up to the side, marked it with my pencil, and then I just used that little saw to cut the wood down to the size that I needed it. And let me just say, I know I did not use this saw the correct way. It was my very first time, so do not do it how I cut mine at all. You want to have that flap down. I did have safety goggles on, but I did not cut it the right way. But I did wanted to show you guys that it will cut these pieces of wood and Jenga blocks or whatever you need it to cut perfectly fine. Now that I have those pieces cut, I use the super glue, wood glue, and the hot glue again to glue those sides down. And then I'm going to take some spackling from Dollar Tree and just kind of fill in any cracks or edges or like where the wood met together so that it all kind of looks like one cohesive piece and you don't see any gaps or anything like that, because one, I'm not the best at measuring, so it wasn't completely perfect, but with the spackling, it was able to look so much better. Once the Dollar Tree spackling was dry, I did use my zip sander to kind of sand all of the wood down and where the spackling was so that everything was nice and smooth. These wood pieces can kind of tend to give little splinters, so you do want to sand it down. Okay, so if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know that I really don't like stain. So the smell, and it takes forever to dry, and I don't care for it. So I do the faux stain technique, which is just mixing a little bit of whatever color paint that you would like, and you can do any color, purple, any green stain, whatever you would like. I used the Hello Hobby Cafe Noir. It is a beautiful like chocolatey brown color. And then I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so I did add a little bit of black. But this faux stain technique, you guys, if you've ever done it or you've watched my videos before, you know how amazing it works. And it dries literally within seconds. So try it, give it a try. I promise you will definitely like it, and there is no icky smell or anything like that. So all I did was kind of get my stain to the color that I want it. Now keep in mind, once it dries, it will dry a little bit lighter, and I just use a paintbrush and I go ahead and paint it on as if it were paint. If you get too much on, you can wipe it off or just kind of take the paintbrush and blend it in like you would normal stain. But for the most part, you just need to paint it on and it will turn out absolutely beautiful and look just like stain. I actually think this color turned out so beautiful once it dried. I did have a hard time wanting to paint it, but I knew that's where I was kind of going with this project. But I absolutely love the color that it turned out. And I did go ahead and stain the entire thing, even down here where the sign is on the bottom. Once the faux stain was dry, you guys, again, I'm so obsessed with this. I think it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I was going a certain direction with this, so I did start painting it, but let me tell you, I sat in my craft room just staring at it for probably about 20 minutes because I just love that color. Let me know what you guys think of that color, of that faux stain down in the comments. It just looks so rustic and just beautiful to me. But again, I was going a certain direction, so I use my white chalk paint and I do a heavy dry brushing, almost kind of getting it to look like that shiplap look in a way, and I do this on the entire piece. Once you have it completely painted how you would like it, it would look like this if you do it the same way that I did, and again, I am loving this as well. Now this original DIY was made in one of my fall videos a while back, but I wanted to jazz it up a little bit more and also change it out for the Christmas season. A centerpiece like this, especially a simple, beautiful wood piece like this, definitely can be used all year round and change out the decor for each holiday. I remove everything that I used for the fall season, and then I wanted to also give it a little bit of an extra special touch. So I'm using these wood beads from our mystery box. They are the square wood beads from Dollar Tree. It is a garland, and at first I thought I was going to use 8 of them, but I did only use 6. And I go ahead and paint all of them with my white Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Linen White. I will be using these wood beads as tiny little legs for our centerpiece so that it raises the centerpiece up just a little bit. However, before I did that, I wanted to put a nice bottom on the bottom of my centerpiece so that you do not see the sign that I had used to actually make the centerpiece. So I just take some Mod Podge, make sure that you get all around the edges very well. And once I had the bottom covered with Mod Podge, I use this brown wrapping paper from Dollar Tree and I just roll it right over the bottom of our centerpiece. I tried to smooth out any air bubbles that I could, but of course it was not perfect, but that's okay because this is the bottom and it looks better than what it did at least. So now I'm going to remove the excess paper by taking my zip sander and I'm going to sand on the edge going all the way around the bottom, and you can see the paper falling right off and coming away from the edge. And once you go around the entire bottom edges, you can lift your centerpiece right up and away from that excess paper. Now that we have a nicer looking bottom, I'm going to take the wood beads and place them where I would like to glue them. I add 1 on each of the corners and then 1 in the center on both the front and the back. So I use, again, 6 total, and once I have them in place, I just go ahead and go around and glue them down. Once they are all glued in place, they will raise the tray up just a little bit, and that is perfect. However, we are not done with the bottom just yet. I got a pack of these beads of these lights off of Amazon. They are fairy lights and super long. They also have that small battery pack that you guys know that I love. So I want to make the centerpiece look like it is glowing from underneath. So I'm taking the fairy lights. Make sure you add your hot glue onto the side without the screws so that you can change out the battery if need be. And then I glued it off to the side, and all I'm going to do is start taking the fairy lights, and I do use my hot glue gun. It worked out perfect, and I go around the bottom of the centerpiece. I do try and stay on the inside of the wood beads so that you don't necessarily see any wire or actually see the lights. You just see the glowing from underneath your centerpiece. You guys, I swear I'm gonna say centerpiece 100 times if I haven't already. So because these Amazon fairy lights are so long, I was actually able to go around the bottom of the centerpiece 2 times and hot glue all of the lights in place. Then I also was like, you know what if we add another color? So all I had for another color was these red fairy lights from Dollar Tree. These, I think, were new this year. I'm not 100% positive. I just know I've never seen this actual set before at my Dollar Tree, but as you can see, they are much smaller than the Amazon lights, and the battery pack is much larger. So I was not going to be able to glue the battery pack underneath the centerpiece like I was able. I'm trying to think of something else to say other than centerpiece, but apparently it's not coming to me. Anyways, I did the red lights just like I did the white lights, but I'm just going to place the battery pack up on top. And for the greenery, of course, we're going to use some Dollar Tree greenery, and I am obsessed with this fern. It just says fern, but you can definitely tell it is very frosted and so pretty and just really gorgeous for winter time. I use 5 of these fern picks total, but for right now I take 4 of them and I fan each one out, and then I place 2 on one side and 2 on the other, facing outward. I also take some of these frosted greeneries from Dollar Tree. These are really, really pretty and really realistic looking as well, but I decided I wanted to kind of sandwich all of these together, or kind of Oreo them, I guess you could say. So I take a fern and then I take a frosted greenery, place it on top of the fern, and then add another fern on top of the frosted greenery. Then I just pull them in so that they are a little bit more inside the wood piece. And now I take one of my favorite Dollar Tree Christmas trees and I place it right in the center. I take that 5th fern pick and I just start pulling it apart and putting the pieces where I need any filler pieces. And you guys, this is coming together so pretty. I don't know about you guys, but I love the different greeneries and the different texture. That is just super pretty, and I really feel like this is coming out so high end. At first I was going to just keep it the one tree in the center, but I wanted to add a smaller tree on either side. So I took a pack of Dollar Tree bottle brush trees and some of their faux snow, and I sprayed downward so that the faux snow really caught onto the branches. And I also sprayed over top of the centerpiece so that any excess faux snow would fall down onto the centerpiece, making it look like it had even more faux snow on it than it already did. And once my trees had enough snow on them to my liking, I just moved the greenery over a little bit and placed one of the smaller trees on either side of the larger tree. Dollar Tree carries this 16 pack of silver ornaments. They have them in several different sizes, colors, and styles. I wanted to use just the matte looking bulbs, so I got those out and placed them wherever I liked. And I did also add a few of the white plastic deers, but I lost that footage. I just placed them right in front of the trees, and here's how this DIY turned out.
The snow is falling down, and the
I think this has such a glam, high-end look to it. It is absolutely gorgeous with the silver and the white, but you can also add other elements like other bulbs, other colors, and do so many different things with this. I added a few little red bulbs and turned the red lights on, and I don't know, you guys, which way do you like better, with the red or with the white? How stinking cute are these mini wood gnomes on Etsy. You do only get one for $18, so again, I figured I would make my own. For this DIY, I used one of these wood planks from Dollar Tree. Now, this one is a little bit different than the normal ones because how the wood was, it gave it that weird corner down here at the bottom. So I did have to make my triangle a little bit smaller, but you could go a little bit larger if you have one of the normal pieces of wood from Dollar Tree. And all I do is take my yardstick, I find the center on one of the sides, and then I draw a triangle shape. Again, I use my little teeny tiny table saw. I think that thing's so stinking cute. And sometimes I do make weird cuts like that because I'm still new at woodworking, but you just take the saw or whatever saw you have and you cut out your triangle shape. Once I have the triangle cut out, I take a piece of painter's tape and I place it about halfway up the wood triangle. And then I take my red chalk paint, this is the color Imperial by Folk Art, and I I paint the entire top part of the triangle right above the painter's tape. Once the top is red, I do like to pull the painter's tape off before the paint dries, but then once the paint is dry, I take another piece of painter's tape and I just line it up with our red paint, and then I lay it down right there, place another piece of painter's tape a little bit below that so we can kind of create the pinstripe on the gnome's hat. And I do wish I would have made my stripe a little bit bigger. So if you do this exactly the same way, definitely make sure that your area where you're making your pinstripe is wider than how I did mine, because I do end up going back in and making it a little bit wider later on, and you won't have to do that step. So I again remove the painter's tape before it dries. Once it is dry, I place another piece of painter's tape, last one, I promise, over top of the white and the red so that we don't get this beautiful gray paint on either one of those colors. And this gray paint, I do believe is called Parisian Gray by Folk Art, and I go ahead and paint the entire bottom of our triangle. Once I have the bottom painted gray, I pull the painter's tape off before it dries, just like I did the other pieces of tape. Then I'm going to use one of these Dollar Tree gnomes. I did get this year, and all I'm going to do is basically rob him of his beard. Sorry, gnome. Sorry, not sorry, because let me tell you, these gnomes turn out so cute. Definitely worth it. So all I do is take my scissors and I start cutting where the gnome's beard is basically stitched onto his body. And after I cut it off, I do take another pair of scissors because the ones that I had were super dull, and I just make the edges a little bit more smooth and not so jagged. I just kind of clean them up a little bit. And on either side of the piece of beard that I cut off a tiny strip of it, and then I just take the fur and kind of fluff my thumb out just to make it so that it never even looks like you cut anything off of it. And those pieces that we cut off are what we are going to use for our mustache. And I did also want to clean up the beard a little bit more, so I fold down these ends, and this also helps it not be so long. So it just fold down the top piece. I just add a little bit of hot glue and folded it down on itself with my finger. Before I glue down the beard, I want to attach the mustache, so I grab those pieces of the beard that I cut off and I just kind of pull off any excess fur that is coming off, and I shorten it just a little bit with my scissors and take some hot glue and I just glue it right where the top center of the beard is so that it looks like it is coming out from the side. And I do the exact same thing with the other piece of beard that we cut off. gluing it to the other side so that it makes it look like the other side of the mustache. And I think this is just so adorable. To attach the beard and the mustache, I use my hot glue and I just place a decent amount right in the center of our triangle where our beard goes. And I put mine a little bit below where I needed to. You want to put it right where the end of your white or whatever color stripe you have is. I placed mine a little bit below because, again, I do want to make that pinstripe a little bit bigger. So before I did that, I went in with my zip sander. I will have this linked down below in the description box. And I start giving this some distressing, just like the gnomes in the picture. Once my gnome was distressed to my liking, here's where I take the piece of painter's tape and I just make that pinstripe on the gnome's hat a little bit bigger than what it already is. Plus, when I was sanding, the red paint kind of made the stripe look pink. So I just freshened this up and also made the stripe look bigger by placing the painter's tape down and adding some fresh white paint. For my gnome's nose, I really like the natural wood look, but I don't like the holes on the side, so I just fill it with some Dollar Tree spackling, and then I glue it right to the center of where the mustache is on our gnome's beard. Now you could leave it just like this and prop it up against something, but I wanted mine to stand up all on its own, so I glue some Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks end to end, and then I glue it to the back of my gnome so that he stands up on his own. And you guys, look how stinking adorable he turned out. Unfortunately, I did lose some footage of me adding that gold ribbon, but as you can see, I just added a little bit of gold ribbon right to our gnome's hat, and oh, I am so obsessed with him, and I definitely cannot wait to make some miniature ones for my tiered tray. I started off with 3 of these glass candle holders from Dollar Tree, and then using a chippy brush and some Mod Podge, I'm just starting from the bottom of the glass, flicking the Mod Podge upwards, going all the way around the glass on all 3 of them. In my dish here, I have this really pretty iridescent snow from Dollar Tree, and then I'm also pouring in some Epsom salt from Dollar Tree. That's going to give it a really pretty effect. And then I just go around and sprinkle all 3 of the jars. I had a little jute twine bow that I made a long time ago for a different project, so I wanted to put it on the center glass piece that's going to be in my centerpiece. And then I'm taking 6 of these Dollar Tree wood crates, mixing a little bit of burnt umber and water mixed together, and then just doing the faux stain technique with all 6 of those crates. I want to attach all 6 of these crates together to create one larger centerpiece, and to do that, I'm just using some wood glue and hot glue, as well as some nice and handy Dollar Tree pink clips. Those always come in handy with those crates. I feel like I use those majority for the Dollar Tree crates, but I just went ahead and attached all of those together, kind of doing a row of 3 and then another row of 3. Then I just went in with some white chalk paint and did a little bit of distressing all around the now larger box piece. I needed some floral foam and I didn't have any on hand, so one hack to use is to use a pool noodle instead of floral foam. Just go ahead and cut it down to the size that you need and it will work just as well as floral foam, if not better. I cut down 6 pieces and placed them right inside my crates. I wanted to make sure that I had my pool noodle pieces into these crates before I add my little surface area to put my glass candle holders on. And to make the surface area, I just used a Dollar Tree wood plank, cut it down to size, and I do take a few Jenga blocks and place that right on the middle one and kind of sandwich another one on top of that, just so that I have a surface area in the center so that the center glass piece sits up a little bit higher than the 2 on either side. Just like I did with the crates, I'm going to take the faux stain and just stain these top pieces as well. At this point, you could add whatever florals or greenery that you would like. I went in with some Dollar Tree greenery as well as some greenery that I got from a lot of thrift shopping throughout the years. I like to save little bits and pieces just to add different textures and colors. For whatever reason, my camera decided not to pick it up, but I did add some of these Dollar Tree white mistletoe berries as well. To give this piece a little bit more of a rustic touch, I took some jute twine and just glued it onto one of the sides and then wrapped it around the box a few times, and then I glued it right back down where I started the jute twine in the first place. I had these Dollar Tree pink and white Christmas ornaments for so long, so I just grabbed the white ones and placed them in throughout, as well as some of these cotton pick pieces. I feel like that gave it a little kind of like a wintry touch, and I am so in love with how this is turning out. At this point, I felt like the front of the box was missing something, so I remembered I had this Amazon paper pack. It is a Christmas paper pack. I will have it linked down below, but I remembered it had these little farm fresh Christmas tree squares or rectangles on here, and they would be perfect. So I just cut one out and then took some white chalk paint and went around the edge just to give it a little bit more detail. And then I'm going to add some Mod Podge on the back and glue it to the center of my centerpiece. Now all you have to do is add in your candles, whether that be real or LED. I chose real ones, and this one is so darn gorgeous. Thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know which projects were your favorite down in the comments. As always, I truly hope to see you all and a few new friends on the next one. Bye!